You don't get a second chance at trust, Jason Miller whispered to himself as the warehouse door groaned under the weight of wind and rust. The night was thick with fog rolling in from the harbor, curling around shipping containers and casting the concrete floor in long, shivering shadows. A faint smell of salt water mixed with the sharp tang of metal and diesel, biting at his lungs as he crouched near a crate, his fingertips brushing the cold surface. Shadow, his German shepherd, stood a few feet away, ears pricked, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. The amber glow of the emergency lights above flickered intermittently, casting their elongated silhouettes across the walls, shadows dancing like specters. Jason's heart thumped against his chest, each beat syncing with the low, resonant growl from Shadow, a sound that seemed to hum in the air, vibrating along the metal beams overhead. He scanned the room, noting the subtle movements. An unfamiliar pair of shoes shifting on the far side of the crates, the clink of a metal box sliding just a fraction too quickly, the almost imperceptible shuffle of someone adjusting their weight. His hand moved instinctively toward the side of his belt, fingertips brushing the worn leather of his holster. Though the thought of drawing it felt distant, secondary to the tension radiating through every fiber of the room. Shadow's tail flicked once, sharply, signaling a presence Jason hadn't yet located, and the dog's stance was rigid, body low to the ground, nostrils flaring with the scent of something hidden, something deliberate. He remembered the drills back at Camp Pendleton, the silent language they had developed through years of missions and training exercises where one glance, one tilt of the head, one subtle shift could communicate more than words ever could. Jason's eyes narrowed, tracing the path Shadow's gaze had cut along the floor, following the rhythm of his breathing, feeling the energy pulse in tandem with the dog's own alertness. A bead of sweat trickled down the side of his temple, cooling immediately against the chill of the warehouse air. He crouched lower, chest nearly brushing the concrete, the texture rough against his fatigues, and allowed the sounds of the environment to fill his awareness. The faint hum of distant traffic, the muffled call of a gull outside, the almost imperceptible hiss of a vent releasing cold air into the cavernous space. A sudden shift, the click of a crate lid moving, made Shadow tense, his growl deepening, vibrating through Jason's chest. He exhaled slowly, controlled, letting the silence become a shield as much as the shadows themselves, listening for the rhythm in the discord. The scent hit him then, subtle but undeniable, metallic yet clean, mingled with the faint aroma of leather and human presence, a signature Jason had come to trust after years in environments like this. Shadow stepped forward, front paws silent against the concrete, eyes locked on the subtle movements across the room, ears swiveling with uncanny precision, tail stiff, body language clear, threat, unknown but detectable. Jason shifted slightly to his left, the gravel beneath his boot crunching softly, each sound deliberate, each movement measured. He whispered again, low, almost inaudible, a mantra as much as a warning, Shadow, stay. The dog's gaze did not waver, the faint flicker of amber in the dim light, like a lighthouse guiding him through uncertainty. Every breath drawn felt heavier, thickened with the weight of anticipation, the promise of revelation hidden somewhere in the labyrinth of steel and shadows. And yet, the calm pulse between man and dog, the silent code they shared, tethered them together against the unknown, against what might emerge from the darkness, unseen but sensed, and in that stillness, Jason felt the profound certainty that trust, once forged in silence and loyalty, could illuminate even the most shadowed corners of a perilous night. The warehouse stretched endlessly, rows of stacked crates forming a maze that seemed to breathe with the wind. Fog seeped through the cracks in the metal walls, drifting along the floor like a slow, curling river, carrying with it the faint scent of old oil and wet concrete. Shadows leapt and flickered as the emergency lights continued their hesitant pulse, painting everything in intermittent strokes of red and amber. Jason moved cautiously, each step measured, boots pressing against the cold, uneven ground. Shadow followed silently, muscles rippling under sleek fur, ears swiveling constantly, nostrils flaring to catch the subtle changes in the air. The dog's amber eyes tracked every minute movement, every flicker of light, as if reading the intentions of the unseen. A distant thump echoed off the walls, followed by a faint scraping sound, a rhythm out of place in the otherwise quiet building. Jason froze, eyes narrowing, listening. Shadow's growl was a low, resonant vibration that traveled along the floor, anchoring Jason's awareness to the dog's instincts. He remembered the first day they had trained together, how he had learned to trust the dog's senses more than his own at times when his mind was clouded by exhaustion or fear. He exhaled slowly, steadying his heartbeat, letting his awareness expand to include every sound. The creak of a shipping pallet shifting, the faint squeak of rubber soles against metal, the distant call of a gull carried through the open vents. The cold bit at his fingertips, making him aware of the weight of his gloves and the slight tremor in his hands. He shifted his stance slightly, eyes sweeping across the near end of the crate maze, noting the glint of a metal latch catching the faint light, the subtle dust disturbed around it, as if someone had brushed against it moments before. Shadow stepped forward a fraction, the pads of his feet silent, head tilting to follow a scent trail invisible to Jason, but vivid in the dog's mind. He watched the dog pause, nose quivering, then lift slightly, as if marking a hidden path, a secret waiting to be uncovered. Jason's gaze followed, every nerve alert, senses attuned to the ebb and flow of the environment, to the whispers of movement around them. A sudden draft made the hanging plastic sheets rustle, and the sound echoed off the far walls, startling him for a moment. Yet Shadow remained composed, body tense but controlled, tail low and stiff. Jason moved closer to the crates, stepping quietly, careful not to disturb the thin layer of dust covering the floor. The dog mirrored him, their movements synchronized, a silent partnership honed over years of missions where communication had been wordless but complete. He noted the faint scratches along the edges of the nearest crate, subtle evidence of recent contact, and felt a pulse of anticipation, the sense that something was about to shift, some hidden truth ready to emerge from the shadows. The distant hum of a ventilation system mingled with the irregular beat of water dripping somewhere further into the maze, creating a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate, almost guiding their path. Jason inhaled the damp air, letting it fill his lungs, grounding him, sharpening his perception of the environment, while Shadow's gaze never wavered from the unseen, a steady presence, a compass in the dark. Every muscle in the dog's body was coiled, every sense alert, as if ready to signal the exact moment when the hidden would be revealed, when the secret presence of another in the warehouse would announce itself through movement, scent, or sound. Jason felt the weight of trust settle in his chest, a quiet anchor amidst the uncertainty, knowing that together they would uncover whatever lay hidden, guided by instincts older than fear, older than the darkness itself. And in that tense, fog-laden space, they continued forward, each step deliberate, the silence broken only by the soft brush of fabric against concrete and the faint, constant echo of possibility. Jason paused behind a row of stacked crates, listening intently as Shadow crouched a few feet away, tail brushing the floor with measured tension. The scent in the air had shifted subtly, the faint odor of metal and oil mingling with something else, something faintly floral, almost out of place in the industrial gloom. His hand rested lightly on the side of his jacket, feeling the textured fabric, while his eyes scanned the narrow corridor between crates, tracing every line of shadow and light. Shadow shifted on his paws, muscles flexing, eyes locked on a narrow gap, where a shaft of dim red light leaked through a crack in the metal wall. Jason could feel the dog's anticipation, a silent communication honed over years of training, the kind that required no words, only shared understanding. He inhaled the damp, cold air, the chill slipping into his lungs and sharpening his senses, each breath a reminder of the stakes, each heartbeat syncing with the subtle rhythm of the warehouse. Somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of machinery punctuated the silence, a mechanical pulse that blended with the soft shuffle of movement from the far side of the crates. Jason adjusted his stance, keeping low, boots pressing into the rough concrete, feeling every creak and scrape underfoot, each one a note in the symphony of tension around him. Shadow's ears twitched, nostrils flaring, and the dog took a cautious step forward, nose close to the floor, tracing the hidden trail with meticulous focus. Jason followed, allowing his senses to attune fully to the environment. Noticing the subtle displacement of dust near the edge of a crate, the slight indentation of a footprint that suggested a presence, someone careful but deliberate. He remembered the drills, the silent signals, the trust they had built that allowed Shadow to act as more than a companion, as a guide, a sentinel, an extension of his own instincts. The ambient light flickered once, throwing the long shadows into sharp relief, and Jason saw the glint of something metallic tucked against the wall, just beyond reach, but close enough to draw attention. Shadow froze, low to the ground, and a soft growl vibrated through the air, deep and resonant, a warning and a signal, the kind that made Jason's blood run sharp with focus. He moved with deliberate care, each step measured against the dog's movements, and they approached the gap together, a synchronized unit of awareness, presence, and trust. The space beyond the crates remained obscured by shadow, but Jason could sense the shift in air pressure, the subtle changes in scent and sound that indicated something waiting, hidden, yet not fully revealed. He exhaled slowly, steadying the rapid pulse in his chest, letting the calm rhythm of their shared connection anchor him as Shadow led with silent authority, guiding him toward the point where the unknown might finally step into the light. The faint light revealed a narrow walkway, littered with small debris and dust, and Shadow moved with care, tail low but alert, sniffing, scanning, ears flicking toward every sound. Jason's eyes followed, every muscle tensed in anticipation, each sense stretched to its limit, as they navigated the narrow corridor together, bound by unspoken communication and the unyielding instinct to uncover what lay hidden. The distant hum grew slightly louder, a subtle vibration beneath their feet, mingling with the dog's soft pads against concrete, creating a rhythm that guided their movement and heightened the awareness of what waited just beyond the threshold of sight, unseen but keenly sensed. The narrow corridor opened into a larger chamber, the faint red glow of the emergency lights bouncing off metal surfaces, revealing crates stacked in haphazard rows, and a thin layer of dust settled over the concrete floor. Jason crouched low, breathing evenly, muscles taut, as Shadow stepped forward, nose to the ground, tracing a trail invisible to human senses, ears pivoting like radar dishes, amber eyes scanning every inch of space for anomaly or disturbance. A soft metallic clang echoed from the far corner, subtle but distinct, drawing both man and dog's attention toward a stack of crates partially illuminated by the flickering light. Jason felt the familiar prickle along his spine, a signal learned over years of field operations, a quiet tension that spoke of the unknown. Shadow's tail rose slightly, stiff and deliberate, a silent marker that something important awaited. The dog advanced with measured grace, every step precise, as though mapping an invisible rhythm, and Jason followed, aware that every sound, the creak of a crate, the soft hiss of wind leaking through the vents, the distant hum of machinery, held significance. Dust motes floated in the light beams, drifting lazily, yet their motion seemed to animate the air itself, casting shifting patterns across the walls and floor, each movement a potential clue or signal. Jason's hand hovered near his jacket, fingertips brushing the fabric as he adjusted his balance, senses sharpening to the subtle cues of the environment, the way Shadow interpreted every nuance of sound and smell. A faint breeze swept across the chamber, carrying a mixture of scents, oil, metal, and something unfamiliar, almost perfumed, delicate against the industrial backdrop. Shadow's ears flicked, nostrils flaring, and the dog paused, body low, alert, tail rigid, signaling Jason to stop. He froze, eyes narrowing, and in that suspended moment, he could feel the pulse of the space, the hidden presence behind crates or within shadows, something waiting to be discovered. The hum of distant vents shifted slightly, the sound blending with the soft pad of Shadow's paws against the floor, creating a rhythm that guided their movement, an unspoken communication between man and dog. Jason moved slowly, following the dog's lead, feeling each breath, each subtle movement in the chamber, aware of the small particles of dust brushing against his skin, the cold concrete pressing underfoot, the tension coiling in the air. Shadow paused at a narrow gap between two crates, nose quivering, tail held straight, and Jason approached carefully, observing the way the dog's body aligned perfectly with the unseen, the unspoken intelligence that guided his companion through the uncertainty. Light flickered again, casting long shadows across the chamber, exaggerating shapes and angles, and Jason felt a brief disorientation, the room seeming larger, more complex than it had a moment ago, yet Shadow's unwavering focus anchored him. The dog stepped forward with silent precision, sniffing, circling, pausing, and Jason mirrored each motion, attuning himself fully to the environment, feeling the rhythm, the pulse, the subtle signals that spoke louder than words ever could. The faint glint of something reflective caught the edge of his eye, and he leaned slightly closer, careful not to disturb the silence, letting Shadow's instincts guide them to the next revelation, the hidden piece of the puzzle waiting in the industrial shadows, where trust and loyalty formed the compass pointing toward discovery. Jason crouched just beyond the narrow opening, senses heightened, every muscle coiled like a spring as Shadow moved with deliberate caution, nose low, ears twitching, tail stiff, guiding him toward a faint shimmer of movement near a stack of crates. The dim light flickered, throwing shadows that stretched across the concrete floor, creating illusions of motion, yet Shadow's gaze remained unwavering, focused on the subtle changes, the imperceptible shift of dust and metal that told a story of what had been disturbed. The air was thick with a mixture of scents, damp concrete, oil, and the faint metallic hint of a forgotten tool, carried faintly by a drifting draft. Jason inhaled slowly, chest rising and falling in measured rhythm, matching the cadence of the dog's movements, allowing the silence to become a kind of map, guiding them closer to the hidden presence. Shadow paused, nostrils flaring, and lifted his head slightly, amber eyes reflecting the faint red glow above, then stepped forward cautiously, each pawfall silent against the rough floor, as if reading the floor itself. Jason followed, trusting the unspoken communication, letting the dog lead while maintaining full awareness of the surroundings, noticing the subtle signs. A tiny smear of dust along the crate, the slight indentation in the worn concrete, the way a stray piece of paper shifted with the air, suggesting that someone had been there recently. The hum of distant machinery seemed to slow, each vibration in the floor amplifying the tension, yet Shadow's movements were deliberate, unhurried, precise, a dance of instincts honed over years of shared training and trust. Jason's hand lingered near the side of his jacket, not in preparation for conflict, but to maintain balance and sensitivity to the space, fingers brushing the textured fabric as he mirrored Shadow's careful steps. A soft scrape echoed from the far side of the chamber, subtle yet distinct, and Jason felt a jolt of anticipation, his focus sharpening to capture every microsecond of sound. Shadow's tail flicked once, a subtle signal, and the dog stepped around a crate, revealing a small gap where light from the overhead flicker spilled through, illuminating a faint glint on a metal latch. Jason moved closer, chest nearly touching the concrete, careful not to disturb the alignment of crates, sensing the hidden nature of whatever lay beyond. Dust particles drifted in the light, moving lazily, yet accentuating the shapes and textures in the chamber, and every step Jason took was synchronized with Shadow, the rhythm of movement, the shared instinct, allowing them to navigate the unknown without hesitation. The space ahead was narrow, cluttered with debris and shadows, yet filled with the pulse of anticipation, every sense tuned to subtle shifts in air pressure, sound, and scent. Jason exhaled slowly, steadying his mind, letting the trust in Shadow guide them further, knowing that each careful step brought them closer to uncovering what had remained hidden, the quiet signal of loyalty and shared perception leading them through the obscured maze, toward the discovery that awaited just beyond the edge of perception, unseen but vividly felt. Jason and Shadow pressed forward into the chamber, each step deliberate, the tension of anticipation coiling tighter with every inch of movement. The faint red glow from the overhead lights continued to flicker, painting the stacked crates in waves of shifting shadow, making the space feel simultaneously vast and constricted. The scent in the air changed subtly, carrying hints of metal, oil, and an almost imperceptible trace of something organic, a signal that Shadow immediately registered with a low, resonant growl. Jason's hand hovered near his jacket, fingertips brushing the fabric as he adjusted his posture to move with fluid precision, each motion synchronized with the dog's instincts. Shadow paused briefly, nose to the floor, tail held low but stiff, and then stepped lightly toward a narrow gap between two tall crates, the amber eyes reflecting the faint light like a beacon guiding Jason forward. The floor beneath them was rough, dust and small fragments of debris pressing against the soles of his boots. Yet each step was calculated, silent, measured, attuned to the faint creak of metal, the subtle hum of distant machinery, and the gentle shift of air currents through the cracks in the warehouse walls. A soft scraping sound echoed from the far corner of the room, a subtle clue, and Jason froze, listening, allowing the rhythm of the sound to register alongside the vibrations he felt through the concrete beneath his feet. Shadow's muscles tensed, head slightly raised, nostrils flaring, ears pivoting with precise attention to the sound, and Jason followed, trusting the unspoken connection that had guided them through past challenges and training exercises where communication required no words. The light flickered again, shadows stretching and compressing across the walls, the crates, and the floor, making every movement appear fluid, alive, a subtle dance of light and dark. Jason noticed a faint glimmer at the base of one crate, a reflection that drew his attention, and he crouched lower, carefully stepping around small piles of dust, adjusting his angle to maintain full sight of the dog and the path ahead. Shadow paused, lifted one paw delicately, and sniffed the air, head tilting slightly, then proceeded with unwavering focus toward the glimmer, moving like a shadow in perfect harmony with the environment. Jason's heartbeat settled into a steady rhythm, matching the flow of movement, the shared awareness of the two companions allowing them to navigate the maze of crates and narrow passageways with remarkable precision. The air remained heavy, scented with metal, dust, and the faint trace of something waiting, hidden, yet perceptible, and each breath Jason drew sharpened his focus, attuning him fully to the subtle signals the dog interpreted instinctively. They approached the faint glint, and Shadow's posture indicated that the discovery was near, the moment when the hidden would reveal itself. The quiet hum of the distant vent system seemed to amplify, mingling with the soft pads of Shadow's feet, creating a rhythm that guided their approach, and Jason felt the certainty that their loyalty, shared experience, and patient observation would lead them to uncover what had been concealed in the shifting shadows of the warehouse, a revelation that required no words, only trust, focus, and the unwavering presence of his steadfast companion. Jason and Shadow paused at the edge of the narrow light, the metallic sheen of the glint catching their eyes, a signal that the hidden presence was closer than ever. The air around them was cooler now, carrying the scent of iron, dust, and the faint trace of something organic, almost imperceptible yet unmistakable to Shadow. The dog's muscles were taut, body low and ready, ears pivoting with precise attention, tail held stiff and deliberate, each movement a silent code Jason read instinctively. He crouched lower, careful to maintain his balance against the uneven floor, the rough texture of concrete pressing underfoot, and let his senses expand, attuning fully to the subtle shifts in the chamber. A faint hum of machinery from the far corner pulsed, blending with the soft scraping of loose debris, and Jason allowed the rhythm to guide him, a silent map of sound and vibration leading toward the concealed element. Shadow stepped forward, nose brushing along the floor, tail flicking as the dog assessed the space, eyes flicking to each shadow and glint of light, interpreting a language invisible to human perception. Jason followed carefully, matching every step with the dog's movement, letting the flow of instinct and awareness dictate their progress. Dust swirled in the weak light, drifting across crates and the concrete like a ghostly veil, and the interplay of shadow and shimmer painted the space in shapes that seemed alive, shifting subtly with every movement of air or footfall. The faint trace of scent grew stronger, the metallic note interlaced with something almost floral, signaling the approach of what had been deliberately hidden. Jason adjusted his stance, hand brushing the side of his jacket for balance, eyes narrowed, muscles coiled with readiness, as Shadow paused once more, nostrils quivering, ears pricked, amber eyes locked on a small opening between crates. He exhaled slowly, feeling the pulse of the chamber, the weight of anticipation pressing against his chest, synchronized with the low, resonant hum of the space and the soft, precise pad of Shadow's feet on concrete. Every micro-detail, the shift of dust, the glint of metal, the faint displacement of air, spoke to him now, each one a piece of a puzzle waiting to be revealed. The dog stepped through the opening, body fluid, eyes focused, and Jason mirrored the movement, crouching, following with deliberate care, aware of the narrow walls brushing against his shoulders, the debris underfoot shifting slightly, but without sound. The air was thick with expectation, the ambient hum mingling with the soft scrape of fabric and concrete. And Jason could feel the anticipation building, the moment approaching when the hidden would finally emerge. Shadow moved with unwavering precision, sniffing, circling, and indicating the path with subtle body language. And Jason trusted completely. Every instinct aligned with the dog's, senses attuned to the cadence of movement and the cues hidden in the silence. Light flickered again, casting elongated shadows that stretched and shifted across crates and floor, accentuating every contour and edge, and in that precise moment, Jason realized that the truth, whatever it was, lay just beyond the final veil of shadow, waiting to be discovered by the partnership of instinct, focus, and unspoken loyalty. Jason froze for a moment as the shadowed gap between crates seemed to pulse with the faintest hint of movement, the subtle play of light and darkness creating the illusion of a living presence. Shadow's low growl vibrated through the concrete, reverberating in Jason's chest, a steady signal that the hidden element was near, yet still concealed, cloaked by the interplay of darkness and the faint red glow from overhead lights. The air grew cooler, carrying a delicate mix of scents, metal, dust, and a faint, almost imperceptible trace of something organic that Shadow immediately recognized as alive, alert, and cautious. Jason adjusted his stance, shifting slightly to keep the dog in his peripheral vision, chest low to the floor, muscles coiled, every nerve attuned to the rhythm of their environment. The subtle hum of distant machinery merged with the soft scrape of debris underfoot, and Jason let the sounds map the space in his mind, each note and vibration telling him more about the hidden layout of the warehouse and the unseen presence within it. Shadow stepped forward, paused silent against the rough concrete, nose close to the ground, tracing a scent that Jason could not yet detect, eyes flicking from shadow to shadow with precise focus, tail held low but stiff, muscles rippling beneath the sleek coat. Jason mirrored each movement, crouched, careful not to disturb the dust that might signal their approach, attuning fully to the delicate cues the dog provided. A faint metallic gleam caught the light as Shadow approached a narrow opening partially hidden behind a stack of crates, pausing momentarily to sniff, ears twitching, then signaling Jason with a subtle shift in posture that this was the point of interest. He stepped closer, careful and deliberate, inhaling the cool air, letting the scents, sounds, and subtle vibrations guide his approach as Shadow's gaze remained fixed on the gap, focused and unwavering. The red glow flickered again, stretching the shadows across the walls, the crates, and the floor, emphasizing every contour, every subtle variation in texture, heightening Jason's awareness of the environment and the hidden presence that remained just out of sight. The dog moved with confidence, every step calculated, eyes fixed, and Jason followed in perfect synchronization, muscles tensed, senses fully alert, attuned to the silent communication that had been cultivated over years of training and shared experience. Dust motes drifted in the light, painting invisible lines through the air, and the combination of shadow, subtle glint, and movement created an almost tangible path guiding them to the revelation that lay beyond. Jason felt the quiet surge of anticipation build in his chest, the certainty of discovery pressing against him, reinforced by the unwavering focus of Shadow, whose every motion conveyed the promise that the hidden truth would soon emerge from the obscurity of the warehouse, a truth illuminated by loyalty, instinct, and the patient persistence of two companions moving as one. As Jason and Shadow edged closer to the narrow opening, the subtle glimmer of light revealed the faint contours of an object partially concealed behind the crates, the metal catching the flickering red glow like a quiet signal. The air shifted slightly, carrying with it the faintest scent of warmth and subtle traces of dust disturbed long ago, enough to guide Shadow's nose and sharpen Jason's focus. The dog moved forward cautiously, muscles coiled, tail held low but rigid, ears swiveling, amber eyes scanning each shadow, each reflective surface, processing the unseen with instinctive precision. Jason mirrored every movement, breath steady, chest low, muscles taut, feeling the vibration of the concrete beneath his boots, attuning to the rhythm of the space and the quiet guidance of his companion. A distant hum of machinery persisted, blending seamlessly with the soft scrape of debris as the dog paused, nose quivering, then lifted slightly, signaling Jason to halt and observe. The faint metallic shine revealed a handle partially hidden, its position suggesting it had been placed deliberately, yet it was subtle enough to be overlooked by an untrained eye. Jason exhaled slowly, adjusting his balance, letting his senses expand to take in the subtle vibrations of the room, the low hum, the creak of the crates settling, the subtle shift of air through narrow gaps. And Shadow stepped forward with careful determination, front paws silent against the concrete. Every step was synchronized, an unspoken rhythm developed over countless missions, the trust between man and dog creating a fluid motion that allowed them to navigate the hidden complexities of the chamber without hesitation. Dust motes drifted in the weak light, illuminated intermittently, seeming to mark a path as Shadow traced the contours of the hidden object with acute precision. Jason's eyes followed the subtle cues, noting the slight depression of the floor beneath a crate, the way the dust was slightly disturbed, the hint of texture suggesting the presence of something unseen but tangible. Shadow paused at the edge of the glint, low growl vibrating softly in the chest of Jason, who crouched and leaned in slightly, every muscle alert, every sense tuned to the silent signals conveyed by his steadfast companion. The flickering light cast long, exaggerated shadows across the floor and walls, creating an ever-shifting tapestry of shapes and depth, each one a potential clue, a subtle nudge from the environment itself guiding their movement. Jason's hand brushed lightly along the edge of a crate, feeling for imperfections, for alignment, for any indication that might confirm Shadow's assessment. The dog sniffed, shifted slightly, then nudged the glint with a precise motion, the object revealing itself more clearly as a carefully concealed latch, previously obscured, now fully illuminated by the interplay of light, shadow, and attention. Jason inhaled, feeling the quiet surge of anticipation, the culmination of careful observation, instinct, and loyalty converging in this moment, the hidden element finally made tangible through the precise, unwavering guidance of Shadow, whose amber eyes reflected both focus and quiet triumph, signaling that the discovery was imminent, and that their partnership had once again revealed what had been concealed in the depths of the warehouse. Jason reached out with deliberate care, fingers brushing the cool metal of the latch that Shadow had uncovered, feeling the subtle texture, the slight resistance that confirmed its mechanism was intact. Shadow remained close, muscles taut, ears flicking in synchronized attention, amber eyes never leaving the small gap where the hidden element waited to reveal itself. A faint draft from the warehouse vents carried the smell of aged wood and oil, mixing with the metallic tang of the latch, and Jason inhaled slowly, letting the scent anchor him in the precise moment, heightening his awareness. He adjusted his stance, chest low, boots pressing evenly against the concrete, and with a steady push, the latch shifted, moving silently yet purposefully, revealing a narrow compartment that had been concealed behind the crates. Shadow stepped forward, nose to the opening, tail stiff but relaxed in a signal of acknowledgement, while Jason leaned closer, carefully observing the contents, noting the interplay of shadow and light that had previously hidden it. Dust particles floated lazily in the flickering glow of the emergency lights, catching the subtle reflections off the edges of the compartment, illuminating small details that would have been otherwise invisible. Jason exhaled, feeling the culmination of observation, instinct, and trust manifest in this precise moment, each step and decision leading to this discovery. The faint hum of distant machinery continued, a constant reminder of the vast, industrial space surrounding them. Yet within the intimate focus of the narrow opening, the world felt still, suspended in anticipation. Shadow circled briefly, then paused, pawing gently at the floor, signaling that the object was important, worthy of attention, and Jason responded with careful precision, shifting slightly to better inspect the contents without disturbing the alignment of crates. The light flickered again, casting elongated shadows, and the interplay of darkness and illumination highlighted textures, angles, and edges, giving clarity to the compartment and whatever it concealed. Jason's breath was slow and measured, mirroring the dog's calm, focused presence as he reached in to uncover the object, noting the smoothness of metal, the worn surfaces, the subtle marks that told a story of careful placement and hidden intent. Shadow remained vigilant, eyes scanning the surroundings, muscles ready, the dog's quiet confidence bolstering Jason's own focus and reinforcing their unspoken communication. With a gentle pull, the object became fully visible, the hidden element finally revealed through the combination of precise observation, instinct, and unwavering trust between man and dog. Jason exhaled, allowing the tension in his shoulders to ease slightly, feeling the quiet triumph that came from patient attention and shared loyalty. Shadow moved closer, nudging against his leg, amber eyes reflecting the soft glow of the lights, a silent acknowledgement of their success. A partnership reaffirmed in the discovery of what had been concealed for so long in the shifting shadows of the warehouse, guided by instincts, trust, and the patient perseverance that had brought them together. Jason leaned back slightly, letting the tension of the discovery settle into a quiet relief, his eyes scanning the surrounding warehouse with a newfound clarity, the ambient hum of machinery and flickering red lights now a backdrop to the subtle, steady rhythm of Shadow's presence at his side. The dog circled once, nose low, tail relaxed, amber eyes reflecting a calm confidence, a silent acknowledgement of the success they had achieved together. Jason exhaled slowly, the cold concrete beneath him pressing firmly, grounding him in the reality of the moment, and he allowed himself to appreciate the synergy that had guided them through the shadows, the hidden spaces, and the uncertainty of the environment. Dust particles floated lazily in the flickering light, drifting across crates and floor, catching brief glints as they moved, and the interplay of shadow and illumination created a textured, almost tangible map of the warehouse, each contour and edge now clear in their wake. Shadow returned to Jason's side, nudging gently, a soft reminder of the bond that had carried them through the challenge. Muscles relaxed, ears flicking occasionally to scan the space, and Jason placed a hand on the dog's sleek back, feeling the warmth beneath the fur, the steady heartbeat that matched his own awareness. The faint metallic scent lingered in the air, mingling with the subtle traces of oil and aged wood, and Jason felt a quiet gratitude for the patience and observation that had brought them to this point, the culmination of instinct, training, and unwavering trust. He stepped back slightly, allowing himself to take in the space fully, noting the alignment of crates, the narrow pathways they had navigated, the subtle signs of movement and presence that had guided Shadow and him to the concealed latch and compartment. Light flickered once more, elongating shadows across the walls and floor, and Jason's gaze followed each line and contour, appreciating the calm after anticipation, the clarity after tension, the sense of accomplishment grounded not in spectacle, but in attentive, deliberate observation. Shadow leaned slightly against his leg, a gentle press of assurance, and Jason smiled faintly, the sound of his own breath steadying in the quiet space, muscles relaxing as the pulse of adrenaline eased, leaving only the warmth of shared understanding. The dog's gaze swept the chamber one last time, alert but calm, and Jason mirrored the motion, the silent dance of awareness and trust lingering in the space as they stood together, companions in action and perception. Each detail, the texture of the concrete, the faint scent of metal, the subtle interplay of light and shadow, imbued the environment with life, with context, with a sense of quiet triumph. Jason's hand lingered on Shadow's back, a silent acknowledgement that the journey through anticipation, careful navigation, and unwavering partnership had reached a point of calm resolution, and that in the stillness, the bond between man and dog, trained and instinctive, confident and alert, had been reaffirmed, carrying with it the quiet, unspoken victory of shared trust and meticulous observation. Jason sank onto the edge of a crate, allowing the accumulated tension to ease from his shoulders, muscles loosening as the steady, measured presence of Shadow remained at his side. The air, still tinged with the metallic scent of aged tools and dust, seemed to settle, the flickering red lights casting a gentle glow that softened the sharp edges of the warehouse. Shadow shifted, laying one paw lightly against Jason's leg, a quiet reassurance. Amber eyes reflecting the subtle illumination, signaling the calm that had followed the discovery. Jason's hands rested on his knees, fingers brushing the rough fabric of his fatigues, grounding him in the tactile reality of the moment, the cold concrete beneath him a reminder of the journey through shadowed spaces and hidden pathways. Dust floated slowly in the light, motes drifting like tiny specters, each one catching briefly on the glint of metal, casting delicate, ephemeral reflections across the floor and walls. The quiet hum of distant machinery formed a subtle backdrop, steady and constant, a rhythmic reminder of the industrial space that had held both uncertainty and revelation, blending seamlessly with the soft sound of Shadow's breathing, a companion at once alert and calm. Jason exhaled deeply, feeling the steadying cadence of their shared awareness, the unspoken trust that had carried them from the first flicker of suspicion through the maze of crates and hidden passages to the precise moment of discovery. Every detail, the alignment of crates, the scattered dust, the interplay of shadows, spoke to the attentive observation, instinct, and patience that had guided them, a quiet affirmation of the bond between man and dog. Shadow's tail flicked gently, brushing against the floor, and Jason responded with a hand on the dog's back, feeling the warmth beneath the fur, the steady heartbeat, and the calm assurance that no words could convey. The interplay of light and shadow painted the warehouse in subtle patterns, elongating contours, revealing textures previously hidden, and Jason allowed his gaze to take in the entirety of the chamber, appreciating the harmony that emerged from focus and loyalty, from careful movement and instinctual guidance. He leaned slightly back, resting against the crate, exhaling slowly, eyes scanning the ambient space, every sense attuned, each inhalation drawing in the layered scents, the soft vibrations of air and concrete, the quiet presence of life and awareness surrounding him. Shadow rested close, amber eyes scanning, ears flicking, yet body relaxed, and Jason allowed himself to feel the quiet triumph, the serene satisfaction that arose not from action alone, but from observation, partnership, and the patient unfolding of hidden truths. In this stillness, the warehouse seemed to breathe alongside them, a shared rhythm of attention and calm, and Jason felt the profound resonance of loyalty and focus, the clarity that comes from trust exercised in silence, a quiet acknowledgement that even in the vast, shadowed spaces, careful observation and steadfast companionship revealed the paths meant to be found. Jason stood slowly, feeling the subtle shift in the warehouse air as the hidden compartment lay fully revealed, the once obscure and secret element now illuminated by the faint, flickering red lights overhead. Shadow moved beside him, paws light and deliberate, tail low and steady, amber eyes scanning the surrounding space, reflecting the soft glow and the calm awareness that followed their shared journey. The dog nudged Jason gently, a tactile signal of reassurance and acknowledgement, and Jason placed a hand on the dog's back, feeling the warmth beneath the fur, the steady rhythm of a heartbeat synchronized with his own, a quiet testament to their bond. Dust drifted lazily through the beams of light, tiny particles moving in slow, almost imperceptible patterns, catching on the edges of metal and concrete, highlighting the textures and contours of the warehouse in subtle relief. Jason exhaled deeply, allowing the tension accumulated over their careful navigation and patient observation to ease, muscles relaxing while his eyes continued to survey the space, noting the alignment of crates, the shadows they had passed, and the quiet stillness that now filled the chamber. The hum of distant machinery provided a soft, constant backdrop, blending seamlessly with the subtle ambient sounds of the space. The faint scrape of a crate settling, the slight shifting of debris underfoot, the whisper of air moving through small gaps, and Jason absorbed each detail, aware that the careful attention and instinctual guidance of Shadow had led them to this point of clarity and resolution. The interplay of light and shadow painted intricate patterns across walls and floor, accentuating the contours, revealing textures and subtle irregularities, and Jason let himself observe these with a sense of calm appreciation, understanding that the quiet, deliberate work of observation, patience, and trust had culminated in a moment of clarity and insight. Shadow circled lightly, then returned to Jason's side, a silent companion in the aftermath of discovery, body relaxed but alert, ears flicking, nose still attentive to the faintest shifts in air and scent. Jason placed both hands on the dog's shoulders for a moment, acknowledging the unspoken partnership, the seamless coordination, the reliance on instinct, awareness, and loyalty that had guided them through uncertainty, shadow, and anticipation. The cold concrete pressed against Jason's boots, the textured floor beneath steady and grounding, while the faint metallic scent lingered in the air, mingling with the soft trace of dust and old wood, a sensory map of the path they had navigated together. He tilted his head slightly, letting his gaze sweep across the chamber, absorbing the soft red glow, the interplay of shapes, shadows, and subtle reflections, feeling the calm that comes from completion, from careful attention, from partnership that had endured the test of instinct and observation. Shadow leaned slightly against his leg, warm and steady, and Jason felt the quiet resonance of loyalty and focus, the clarity that arises from trust exercised in patience, the satisfaction of uncovering what was hidden without haste, guided by the attentive presence of a companion whose instincts and awareness had illuminated the path. In the stillness of the warehouse, the quiet triumph was shared, unspoken but profound, a bond reaffirmed, a journey concluded in grace and attentive collaboration, the moment suspended in calm, clarity, and the subtle illumination of trust and perseverance.